Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leadership Evolution. Today, we're going to talk about how to develop leadership presence. When you walk into a room, do people notice? Do you make a strong impression on other people? Do people gravitate towards you in a crowd? Do you project an energy that captivates attention? If you do, then you've got presence. Presence is that magnetic quality that draws other people to you. And presence is so important to a leader. Can you imagine General George Patton in World War II without his swagger? Or imagine Rosa Parks, too bashful or ashamed to get on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama? Or how about Larry Bird, the Boston Celtic great, without his trash-talking charisma? Have you ever seen Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker and coach? Have you ever seen him walk out onto a stage? Every one of those people have presence. And wouldn't you want to be with any one of those people? I know I would. I don't know about you, but when I look at those people and the presence that they have, I think to myself, there's no way that I can be that. One of the myths about presence is that presence, leadership presence, is only for top leaders, the people who are top in their field. And friends, that's a myth, because anybody can have presence. Anybody can know who they are and communicate well and connect with other people and have that magnetism that draws people in. Another myth about leadership presence is that you're born with it. You look at someone like Steve Jobs and you think, wow, that guy was born with charisma and I can never be like that. Friends, don't believe that myth either, because you can develop leadership presence for your life. Now, you may never turn out to be like Steve Jobs, or you may turn out to be better than Steve Jobs, but you need to believe that you can develop leadership presence. Another myth about leadership presence is that you have to be an extrovert. I have to be outgoing. I have to be the one that, is the party person whenever I'm in the crowd. And I have to be an extrovert in order to have leadership presence. And that's not true either. In fact, some of the top leaders in the world describe themselves as introverts. Have you ever heard of Barack Obama, Marissa Mayer, Warren Buffett? All of those people describe themselves as introverts, and yet I don't think anybody would argue that they have charisma. They have that presence that we're talking about today. Presence consists of three things: owning who you are, having the courage to put yourself and your work out there, and the ability to authentically connect with other people. So let's break down those three ingredients and talk about how you can develop leadership presence for your life. The first ingredient is you've got to own who you are. Now, if you look at yourself and you don't like what you see, your tendency is going to be to try to be somebody else. You'll look at someone else who you do like and somebody else who does impress you, and you'll think to yourself, that's who I want to be. And so you'll try to be like that person. And you'll imitate them, you'll try to impress them, and what's happening is you're trying to be someone different. And friends, charisma and presence cannot come from somewhere else. It's got to come from inside of you. Presence means being present with your authentic self. And so you've got to know who you are. You've got to own that. Because when you don't own yourself, you are uninteresting. People are drawn to someone who is authentic, not a pretender. So leadership presence starts with you owning your authentic self. Take the time and do the work to recognize who you are. What is your personality? What are your skills? What are your talents? What experiences do you have that have made you who you are today? What is your sense of humor? How do you like to talk to people? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? How do you like to dress, etc., etc.? Recognize who you are. Let it come from inside of you. And then, after you've recognized some things about yourself, appreciate them. Appreciate who you are. Don't minimize that. When I coach people and they minimize themselves, they usually are minimizing themselves and thinking less of themselves through the eyes of another person. In other words, they're not looking at themselves and their own integrity, their own essence. They're viewing their life and they're viewing themselves through the eyes of someone that's close to them or someone that's important to them. And they think that the other person looks at them in some way, and that's why they minimize their skills, talents, abilities themselves. The first step towards having presence is to be good with yourself. No matter what anyone else thinks, whether anyone else notices or appreciates it, you notice it, you appreciate it, and you recognize who you are in this world. Friends, you'll never have presence, you'll never have leadership presence, that magnetic quality that draws people to you until you've learned to accept yourself for who you are and appreciate what you're bringing to the world. Now, the second ingredient for leadership presence is having the courage to put yourself and your work out there. People gravitate towards somebody with confidence. Now, let's talk about confidence for a second. I've put out other videos that dives into how you can develop confidence for yourself, and I've done that in greater detail. But I want to touch on something a little bit different here. So as we're talking about leadership presence and having the courage to put yourself out there, the courage to put your work out there, that takes confidence. And the reason that most of us don't have confidence is because we haven't put the work in ahead of time. We simply aren't prepared. Have you ever been to a party and you're standing with a group of people and someone in the group brings up the subject of Harry Potter, for example, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about Harry Potter, and you don't know anything about Harry Potter because you've never read the books and you've never watched the movies? What do you do when everyone else is talking about something that you don't know anything about? Well, if you're like me, you kind of sit back, maybe fold your arms, pick up a drink, nod your head, smile and wave. I don't participate. And therefore, I have no presence in that moment. Why? It's not because I am less than everybody else. It's not because anyone else in the group is better than I am. It's because I don't know anything about the subject. Confidence comes from the work that you put in ahead of time. If you've got a presentation to make, prepare for it. Practice. The more that you practice for what you're going to do and the more that you're prepared for what you're about to do, the more confidence that you'll have in that moment and the more presence you'll have in that moment. People are attracted to somebody who has confidence. If you want to confidently sell something, do the work ahead of time to understand your client's needs so that when you sell something to them, you're talking from their perspective and you're talking about their needs and how you can meet those needs. And the more prepared you are to do that, the more confident you will be in that presentation. Do you want to be confident in front of your boss? Know your stuff. You see, your confidence will be directly correlated to the amount of work that you put in ahead of time. And your presence depends on you putting your work out there. Now, you might be listening to this and saying to yourself, I can't do that. You might even be an expert in your field, and you're still unwilling to put your work and put yourself out there. And the reason for that is you're probably afraid. So let me talk about that for just a second. If you're afraid to stand up on a stage and do a presentation, or if you're afraid to walk into a meeting and have an opinion for your boss or for your colleagues, then acknowledge that. Take a moment and try to figure out what it is exactly that you're afraid of and name it and face it. When you name your fear, it holds far less power over you than if you just ignore it. So if you're afraid, you're normal. Acknowledge that, face it, name it. Now, in my experience, when people are afraid, it's for one of two reasons. The good news is that you could do something about both of these reasons. If you're afraid, number one, you haven't done enough work ahead of time so that you're prepared and you know your stuff. Or if you're afraid, number two, it's because you haven't done it often enough and it's just a new experience. My advice would be work hard ahead of time so that you know your stuff, so that you're prepared. And then number two, just get up and do it. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And you'll find that the more that you do it, the less afraid you'll be to do it. So own yourself and confidently put yourself out there. If you're a Harry Potter guy, know your stuff, and the next time it comes up at a party, put it out there. People are attracted to that. You'll have that magnetic quality that draws people to you when you have confidence in something. Now, the third ingredient for having leadership presence is that you've got to be able to authentically connect with others. Now that you've owned who you are, and now that you've done the work and you have the experience so that you can confidently put yourself out there. Use all of that to connect with the other people. I know people, and so do you probably, people who own themselves and are experts in their fields and are very confident to say things in public and in meetings, but who are only interested in themselves. They're only in it for themselves. And it's obvious that the reason that they're speaking up is to show off or to get something for themselves. They want everyone else to give to them. They want attention, applause, the slap on the back. They want the raise. They want the promotion. They're in it for themselves. They are their own favorite subject. And how do you think everyone else responds to that? How do you respond to that when someone else is in the room and it's all about them and nobody else? You're repelled, aren't you? People don't want to be around someone who's only in the game to get what they can get out of it. So leadership presence is always outward facing. Yes, own who you are. Yes, do the work to become an expert. Yes, prepare. Yes, have experience. That's all the stuff that you do for yourself ahead of time. But when it comes time to walk on the stage, it's got to be about everybody else. Presence is always outward facing, trying to connect with people, trying to meet their needs, trying to help them solve a problem for themselves. It's not about you. The more that you can connect with other people and give them what they want or what they need, the more drawn to you they will be. And friends, this is where all the presence hacks come into play. Like if you watch all the YouTube videos or you read articles about having presence, everyone's going to say, look people in the eye, have a firm handshake, make sure that you expand into your space, make sure that you dress in such a way that attracts their attention, use reassuring touch, have vocal power, use open gestures when you're talking to people. All of those things are great hacks to use as you're trying to connect with other people. The reason for you to use all of those things or any of those things in any situation is not so that you can promote yourself. It's so that you can connect with other people. So when you own yourself so that you're not trying to be somebody else, and when you are confident enough to put yourself out there and you're confident enough to put your work out there, and if you can connect with other people, those people will notice when you enter a room and you will have presence. And that in turn will help you to lead and influence other people. Thank you for watching today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that if it has been helpful, that you'll leave a comment in the comment section below. Or if you would like for me to explain one of these concepts in further detail, please leave that comment in the section below. I really appreciate that you watched Leadership Evolution today, and I'll see you in the next video.